Good morning. Good morning. So today we're carrying on with Evans's version of the causal theory of reference. Immediately after, we'll have one more session on Evans on Wednesday, and then I'm going to change the schedule and bless me. We'll move on to Wittgenstein on following a rule, the central passages of investigations, right after that. We'll do basically the same. I haven't yet changed the syllabus on the website, but I will do that by tonight. Okay, any questions about that? So straight on to Wittgenstein after this. Okay, so I'm going to begin just by going over quickly the stuff we did last time and making a remark about how that applies to natural kind words. Then comment on what seemed to me it's a little bit technical and a little bit hard to see what he's after in Evans's official formulation of his theory. And then what I hope we can spend most time on is putting some perspective on the causal theory of reference, because one thing you might have thought about causation and reference is, what do they have to do with one another? Why is this happening? I mean, maybe it's kind of plausible that reference requires causation, but is there a bigger picture in which you can understand why it is that causation seems to be a key notion? Okay, so last time we were talking about this example of Evans's. Here we have the youth, the famous emperor, and 1793, just before Waterloo. Most of the information that we have about Napoleon comes from this mid-period, the Emperor of Europe, the great military strategist, and so on. So if we have an individual, Alpha, there, who covers this part of Napoleon's life, and then is replaced by an imposter at this late stage, if Beta comes in at this late stage, pushes Napoleon into a ditch, and takes over the three-cornered hat right here, and we say, did Napoleon fight at the Battle of Waterloo? Then the answer is, no, Napoleon did not fight at the Battle of Waterloo. Right? This place was taken by an imposter. If, on the other hand, the Beta had taken over much earlier and had shoved the youth into a ditch and then gone on to become Emperor of Europe and so on, and then you say, well, in that scenario, where Beta takes over at a much earlier stage, in that scenario, did Napoleon fight at the Battle of Waterloo? Then the answer is, yes. Right? No? If what happened was that this youth was shoved into a ditch at the age of 21 or whatever, and then the guy who shoved him into the ditch won all the famous victories, unified Europe under the French Empire, then when we talk about Napoleon, who are we talking about? The youth or this guy? This guy, right? And did this guy fight at the Battle of Waterloo in this scenario? Yes. So did Napoleon fight at the Battle of Waterloo? Yes. Right. Okay? So that's the idea that what matters for reference is who's the dominant source of the descriptions you associate with the term. Who's the dominant source? The guy in the middle is the dominant source. So whichever one he is, that's who you're talking about. Yeah. Any questions about that? Okay. There are also these cases of reference shift. Spot the dog was our early example. Evans also gives this case of Madagascar, a hearsay report of Malleol's Arab sailors. And then you can understand what's going on in this kind of case by saying what's going on here is that there's a shift in the dominant source of the information associated with the name. So what happens is that when the Malay or Arab sailors are talking, the dominant source of the information that they associate with the name Madagascar is a bit of the mainland. As Marco Polo takes it over and uses it as a name of the island, the dominant source of the information we associate with the term comes to be the island. Was that too fast? Yeah, so you got a shift in reference there. Yeah. So this is a kind of key example because it brings out what's wrong with Kripke's theory and writes about Evans. That's why Evans' theory beats Kripke's. Because what's going on here is that you had an initial dubbing of that part of the mainland, and everyone in the causal chain since then intended to refer to the same thing as the people before them. Everyone was doing their best to keep continuity of reference. Yes, this is not like the case in which I call my dog Wittgenstein, where I'm not even intending to preserve reference. These people were all intending to preserve reference, but the reference shifted nonetheless. So reference, so as against Kripke, reference is shifting despite you being a causal chain all the way back to the mainland and intention to preserve reference all the way through. But what's happened is there's a shift in the dominant source of the information associated with the name. If I'm explaining this correctly, that should be absolutely plain. Whether you agree or not, the argument should be absolutely clear. Yeah? Okay. So what preserving reference demands is not that you intend to refer to the same thing as the people before you. What matters is that you keep the same dominant source for the body of information you associate with the name. Now you can apply all this stuff to natural kinds, words like water and gold and tiger and so on. And what happens in Twin Earth is you've got a dossier of information associated with the word water, participates in the evaporation, condensation, precipitation cycle, clear, quenches thirst, and so on. So you've got a similar dossier on Earth as you have in Twin Earth, but on Earth, the dominant source for that information is H2O. On Twin Earth, the dominant source for that information is XYZ. So if you moved from one planet to the other, then at first, the reference would be the same, because the dominant source of the information you associate with the term would be the stuff in your home planet, but as time went on, the dominant source of the information you associate with the term would be the stuff in your new home. Okay, so your reference would shift slowly from Earth to Twin Earth. Yeah, yes? Okay, you run a marathon in Earth, yep. Yes. Yes. What I just said implies that you would be wrong, but if you say, well, that's obviously not the right answer, then I can fudge a little bit to try and accommodate that. So you run the marathon, you drink the water, it's just fantastic, that memory is burned in your brain. Whenever you think of water, that comes back to you, your lost chord, that experience of drinking water you always wish you could quite recover. Something like that? Well, yes. Right. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, one of the disagreeable things about this theory is that there is room for a lot of flexibility in the notion of the dominant source. As Evan says, your reasons for your interest in the thing might affect which information counts, which causal source counts as dominant. I suppose we ham up your example a little bit and suppose that what you're always trying to do is recapture the context of that perfect drink. Yeah. Then I think it would be fairly intuitive that the dominant source is that early encounter. Yeah. And it stays that way even though time changes. Yeah. Someone who just forgets drinking water over time, on the other hand, there would be no point in saying the dominant source has to do with what was happening 20 years ago. Yeah. Your case is a little bit difficult because it falls somewhere in between. Yeah. I mean, if you say, would you really want to be in a position to say, look, you're wrong, water doesn't come out of the taps here, water doesn't fall from the sky? You're never getting what you ask for when you ask for a glass of water. It seems to me, intuitions are not clear about that, it seems to me. My intuitions are not clear. Does that make sense? Okay. I think what your example presses at is the need to say more about what dominant means. The reason I give the Napoleon example is it's so clear there that you can see why one person rather than another is counting as the dominant source of the information. So there is something very intuitive here. But making this into an explicit general account is not easy. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So you have just the same structure for names for substances as you have for names of people here. You could have unintended shifts of reference if your dominant source shifts without you realizing it. Yeah. So we don't need to think of natural kind terms as Kripke thinks of them as involving an initial dubbing and then a causal chain plus an intention to preserve reference. That's the Kripke theory, that two-part theory, the initial dubbing and the causal chain with the intention to preserve reference. And what these kind of examples seem to show is that two-part structure is not right. Because you can't have the shift of reference even though you have both these conditions being met. And Evans says the point of this paper is to restore the condition connection which must exist between strict proof conditions and the beliefs and interests of the user of the sentences if the technical notion of strict proof conditions is to be of interest to us. So this is supposed to be more of a real-world conception of reference. If it's the dominant source of your current body of information, then it's something that matters to you. Whereas something that's merely at the end of a causal chain going back to an initial dubbing perhaps several centuries ago, that's not really so important what went on in that chain of that initial dubbing several centuries ago. What matters is who's the dominant source of your present collection of information. Okay? That's just to state what the theory is. Okay, very good. So I want to look over just, I think this is the most technical bit in Evans' paper, and it seems to me needlessly technical. I don't even think it's correct, actually. So, but let me just work over this, because I assume that you're still trying to do this thing of working back and forth between the readings and the section and the lecture. Yes? We're also doing the readings. Yes? Right. And there's certainly, I mean, just smile at it. There's much more in Evans' article than I'm covering in the lecture, as you'll know, right? It's a very rich article, lots of examples. And what I'm going to do now is just try and talk through what I think is the hardest to crack bit of the article, the hardest to see why he puts things the way he does. So he says, a speaker intends to refer to the item that is the dominant source of his associated body of information. That's a little bit strange, that. I think he means that as a kind of definition of intending to refer. It's a little bit intuitive. The kind of way you'd use it is, if I'm telling you a great long story about Louis XIV, and I'm saying to you how Louis XIV was very badly treated by the British and was eventually put in prison on Elba by them, but obtained a glorious release and went on to fight at Waterloo. After a bit, you might say to me, you don't mean Louis XIV, you mean Napoleon. Right? You were intending to refer to Napoleon. So that, because Napoleon is clearly the dominant source of the information that I'm using. Yeah? So that's the kind of thing he means. You mean to refer to, you're trying to refer to, that's just a definition, the item that's the dominant source of your associated body of information. Then well, success in reference in any particular case is relying on common knowledge between speaker and hearer that the name has been used to refer to X by the members of your community. And this is a kind of anti-Searle clause, not uncommon knowledge that the referent matches predicates in the cluster. How are we doing? I know it's early in the morning, but is it kind of claim that that's the anti-Searle point? Searle said the referent is whatever matches the cluster of descriptions associated with the term. This is not a match theory. It's not satisfaction of the predicates in the cluster. That's the important thing. It's not whether he actually did escape from Elba and so on. It's whether he's the source of the information about escaping from Elba. So what goes on is we have this practice of using a name, Napoleon. We all know that we're using it to refer to this person. Everybody knows that we're all using it to refer to this person. And when I say Napoleon, I'm relying on your knowledge that the name's been used to refer to that person before. Something like that is a theory. It's a little bit complex because really, most of us wouldn't really have thought about this stuff before starting a class on it. Yeah. I mean, do you really know that people intend to refer to the dominant source of their information before you did this class? I mean, think about these poor benighted people who've never taken a philosophy class, but talk about Napoleon the whole time. Do they really know? Well, you know what I mean? Historians. Do they really know all this stuff? Does anybody who's using a name really have this reflective knowledge of what's going on? Evans sums up his theory by saying, Napoleon is a name of X if there's a community C in which it's common knowledge that members of C have in their repertoire. The procedure of using Napoleon to refer to X, that is, with the intention of referring to X, that is, with having X as the dominant source of the body of information associated with the term. Now, is that common knowledge among English speakers? I do not believe it. I mean, even if Evans' theory is perfectly right, this is really a little bit fancy. Yeah? I mean, I know that we prefer our refutations of philosophical theories to be, this is a contradiction, but yeah, the objection to this is just it's a bit fancy. Yeah, it describes people knowledge that you don't really seem to have. So let me try and put this in perspective. I mean, do we really have to be explicit about this? I mean, in ordinary thinking. Suppose you think about using a term like this piece of paper to refer to a particular piece of paper, or that table, or that person. Then what's going on there is, you could say, well, this isn't using a name, if I just say, that man over there, but it's the same kind of structure, because in perception, I get a whole bunch of information about a particular individual, and the person I'm referring to is the person who's the cause of me having all that perceptual information. Remember that thing with the tomatoes? I got a tomato behind the mirror, I got a tomato I can see in the mirror, and I say, that tomato. Which one am I talking about? Okay, here this is me. I can see in the mirror, this one is hidden by the mirror. Okay, I use the term, that tomato, I say, that tomato is red, or that tomato is mine. Which tomato am I talking about? The one in the mirror. I mean, this one. Yes, the one reflected in the mirror, not the one hidden by the mirror, right? So I can refer to the thing when there's that causal connect between me and it. It's the dominant source of my perceptual information. So evidence theory applies here too. But that doesn't require that I be thinking about that being the dominant source of my perceptual information. It just is the dominant source of my perceptual information. Therefore, that's what I'm talking about. If I have here a simple piece of chalk. Yes? Now, you can think about this chalk. Yes, you can say, what is he going to do with it? Does that require that you be thinking, this chalk is the dominant source of my current body of perceptual information? No, you don't need to think that. But so long as the chalk actually is the dominant source of your current body of perceptual information, you can think about it. So when you perceive an object, you can think, well, I'm getting a cluster of information, I'm getting a dossier on that thing. And the dominant source, that just is the object you're seeing. So you've got a perceptual system here. I mean, just having vision, you've got a perceptual system that organizes itself around particular objects in your vicinity. That's what your perceptual system is good at. Any animal is going to have a similar perceptual system that, not any animal, but most animals, that organizes itself around the objects around them. A tiger, seeing its prey, has got a whole bunch of information about that thing. It is not reflecting on what's the dominant source of that information, but it still sees particular objects. So when you get that flamingo or whatever, then you are referring to whatever is in fact the dominant source. But there's no obvious role here for explicit common knowledge or intention. If you talk about photographs, what a photograph is a photograph of, you can say a photograph is a photograph of whatever is the dominant source of the information in the photograph. But this stuff about common knowledge or intention doesn't really seem to the point there. Even if the photograph was taken by a machine, it's still a photograph of a particular person, whatever anybody intended. And it seems similar for memory. So if you just think what kind of cognitive creatures we are, we don't just use language, we have perception, we have memory. And if you ask, who is it you're remembering? If you remember a particular glass of water, then that flashbulb in your memory, which thing you're remembering is the thing that is the dominant source of your current body of information. So you can think what's going on is, in perception, or if you think of this over time, in perception I get information inputs to me, I'm referring to whatever's the dominant source of that information. Over time, that perception, that causal chain goes on, I get wired up with other perceptual inputs I have, and so on. And you've got here a system for finding out about its environment. And when you say, well, which object is it finding about in its environment? It's just finding out about the objects that are the dominant sources of its current information. So you can think of the way we talk to each other as just being an extension of those more basic perceptual systems. That's to say, they work in just the same way. If you and I are talking about someone, then we're getting information about whatever thing is the dominant source of our information. That's just the way it works. And you can think, well, here's the way it goes. You get the person that we're talking about here inputting into my perceptual information, then I talk about them to you, you put that together with your perceptual information, and the whole information gathering system that you have, whether it's perception or memory or language, is all working in just the same way. And it's not a matter of what we have common knowledge of or what we think about. We don't need this kind of clause in Evans where we talk about the common knowledge that we have in our repertoire. We can just say language works in the same way as perception or memory. I'll try and amplify that kind of point in a moment. Is that reasonably clear? I'm really saying, it's not so much I'm trying to explain that relatively technical formulation in Evans as to say, you can set it aside. I don't really think this is what's valuable about the theory. Yeah? Yes. I'm saying that's how it is. I actually do not think Evans would have disagreed. I think he didn't really address the question, but I think if he had addressed it, he would very likely have agreed. Yeah, so I don't think this is some wildly left field idea I'm expressing here. But what I'm saying is, if you think of an animal that can perceive and remember, but it doesn't have language, the way you describe what it's doing is finding out about particular objects and having memories of particular objects, and that would work in that dominant source kind of way. And language is just working in the same way. Human language is just working in the same way as the cognitive system of an animal without language. Yeah, so far as reference goes. Okay, well on that cliffhanging point, let's look a little bit about, I want to try and put this in a much broader context. So I'm actually not going away from this point. If you're puzzled by that, then you'll have opportunity to raise questions in just the next couple of minutes. Suppose you ask what the function of language is, and what good does it do you having a language? We talked about this a bit in the very first meeting, but I want to come back to this with one particular answer in mind. There are lots of answers you could give to the question, what is the function of language? But surely one basic thing is that it transmits knowledge from speaker to hearer. That's to say, if I can see round the corner and you can't, and you say to me, is he coming? Then I can tell you, he's coming. And then it's for you, just as if you'd seen him. You see what I mean? Should I go over that again? I mean, one way you can find out whether he's coming is to have a look yourself. Another way is to ask me. So my talk does the work that perception could have done. If someone reliable tells you something, then it is for you just as if you'd seen it yourself. It's kind of obvious with animals, that an animal call sign, there's a predator around, can make the whole flock react just as if any one of them would have if they'd seen the predator themselves. Yeah, that's why animals have these alarm cries. Yeah, so there's something really basic about that. So the basic picture is the speaker makes an assertion, the speaker says something, the hearer trusts and understands them, and then you get knowledge. Yes? That's a really basic thing in language. And obviously if you're very sophisticated, you're not going to believe a lot of the things that people say to you, but there's a really ground floor level at which you have to believe